it leads to resilience in workers and organisations. Noorie, over to you.
Thank you, Don, and thank you to everyone for joining us this afternoon, morning, evening, wherever you are. So thanks indeed for joining us. Just a little bit about myself. Uh, well, I suppose first of all, before we begin, I hope that you, your loved ones, and colleagues are all keeping well and safe. Obviously, these are trying times at the moment, but hopefully you're all working from home by now. So a little bit about me. I have the
Noorie, can I just
pleasure.
check for a second? Are you on a speakerphone?
Yes, I am.
It sounds slightly echoey. Is there any way of bringing it closer to you?
Does this make a difference?
That sounds better, yes.
Okay.
Brilliant.
Right.
Sorry to interrupt you. Back to you, Noorie.
That's okay. Um, so just a little bit about me. I've got the pleasure and honour of leading Saffron, and have done so for the last 10 years. But prior to that, my life was in different areas of consulting. So I was a partner at KPMG, where I led the people services business in London and Eastern counties, across all service areas from tax, global mobility, high net worth individuals, pensions, as well as learning. And I've also held in-house global roles at BP and Lendlease. So a varied career, and that perhaps is not a bad thing given the subject for today's topic on career adaptability. And indeed, I know a lot of you come from different backgrounds before you landed in HR or L&D too, so you all know a thing or two about career adaptability. But moving on to what we're going to be talking about today, it's really about how can you address career adaptability in your organisation? What are the kind of frameworks or sort of modes of reference that you can, structure that conversation and framework within your organisation? And I'm going to be showing you some free assessment tools that you can use. And then once you've kind of got that career adaptability framework in place, how can you then enable skills assessment and obviously skills acquisition? And then I really wanted to talk to you about some exciting work that we're doing at the moment. I'm on embargo in terms of total details, but it's part of the National Retraining Scheme, which I can talk to you about later as well. But before we start, it'd be great to know what you're actually doing around career adaptability or career resilience within your organisation. And if you're not doing anything, has the current situation that we now find ourselves in made this a priority? So if you could use the chat to just let us know what you're doing, that'd be great.
Always interested to know what people are doing in their practice, and given the current situation, is it a priority? We're welcome to answer that. I guess what the answer might be, but I'm very interested to know what people are doing around agility. I say agility, sorry, adaptability, I should say, and resilience at the moment. Well, sitting here, I can see on my monitor it says multiple attendees are typing, and well, we'll see what comes from that. We have a talent management group to assist with employee engagement within a flat structure, says Joanna. That's really interesting. So that's employee engagement. Does that help them with their adaptability? Joanna, just asking. Dan's in the retail industry. Oof. Currently redeploying teams to key areas, i.e. food shops and online support. As Sheen's developing career pathways, I think that's really interesting to talk about. Ian's saying, as a small business, we often seek to help people extend their roles with new skills, not necessarily complete role change. And I think that's true for all small businesses. And small business can be, up to 1,000 people, where you've got to have people adding things to what they do, because that's the nature of the business. Tara's pointing out that we just need to identify gaps in what we can do at the moment. A lot of people talk about talent processes, and Mary's talking about having a talent process which then feeds into and drives things like internal mobility. Now, if you've got the structures that enable that, that's fantastic. So, Mary, if you want to share more about that later on, would love to read about it. Debbie also, Noorie, it's really interesting reading these detailed answers, very interesting. Debbie's saying, look, we're redeploying people at the moment, and I guess some people, but Debbie, correct me if I'm wrong, some people redeploy better than others. Yeah. Noorie, I'm reading all these in some detail. You must be reading them too. What are you thinking about it?
Yeah, I'm thinking that's it's great actually because even before the current pandemic, and appreciate Dan, you're in the thick of things at the moment. But even before that, the fourth revolution was obviously weighing in on, so many of the professions. And whilst it was always going to affect blue collar workers first, it's clear that, the professions will follow very, very quickly. So currently I'm reading that a lot of conveyancing that used to use lawyers and solicitors, those areas are now being done through use of blockchain and certain corporate finance transactions and other financial services transactions again are using blockchain, not only because it cuts out the middleman in terms of brokers, but also it actually helps with source of funds and therefore money laundering. And so because of these add-on benefits, this kind of transformation is going to continue and accelerate.
And can I just cut across you for a second, Noorie, there? I just want to say thank you to everybody for what you're sharing here, because it's not necessarily easy in these difficult times to share what's going on. It's really fascinating, and it's useful for the presenters. It's also useful for everybody else in the room to know that we're all in the same boat, some of us perhaps more affected than others, but everyone's having to change and adapt right now. And I really want to say thank you for being so honest and sharing, and everyone learning from everybody else what's going on, and actually also learning that it is possible to adjust and to change and to ask people to redirect and to take on more responsibility or entirely different responsibilities. So thank you very much, everyone, for just sharing all that stuff in the chat. I really appreciate it. Noorie, back to you.
Thanks. I think Gavin said I called you Dan, but I was actually referring to another Dan that's on the chat at the moment, Gavin. So at the same time that we're going through the technological changes, there's obviously this yawning skills gap in the areas where we're going to need to move to. And what we can see from the chat is exactly what we're finding HR departments are doing. They're trying to fill these gaps with individuals within the organisation, and not talent development is no longer just a hiring and mapping exercise. Most strategic departments now are encompassing mass reskilling to meet organisational needs. And that, of course, is where the pressure on L&D will increase, because that reskilling will become, if you like, your problem in terms of helping the business to cope. And then, given the current situation with the pandemic, although we're thinking that this might be a temporary halt, what I'm sort of understanding from some of the research that we're doing and what MIT in particular, so the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, is thinking that things won't go back to normal even when we do stop working from home. So we all know that the stark reality is that some firms won't make it through this period. There will be casualties and there will be redundancies. So what that's going to do is bring in focus, even sharper focus, the future of work. And in particular, whether such things as departments or areas of specialism will actually even exist, or will it be that groups of people combining with different skills simply work on projects together? And indeed, will we have careers as such, or will we have portfolios? In other words, potentially a number of jobs that you do at any one time that amount to a full-time role or career building. So we can't always predict the future, but what is clear is that if you build an adaptable and resilient workforce that can work alongside technology, then it's they that will provide the stability, security, and protection for the organisation, and at large, hopefully, the economy and society. So, in your hands is quite a task, participants. So, what this means for us as individuals, but also in terms of the workforce, is that we're going to have to change shape. And I don't just mean getting fatter working from home, which seems to be a lot of my friends' worries about working from home. I think you know what some of these symbols might represent, but traditionally in organisations we've had I-shaped people, which are, you know, deep specialists who have a single speciality or focus. When I was in the consulting world, I was always asked to be a T-shaped practitioner, and that's something that's quite common in consulting or sort of those kinds of professions, where you have a deep, a wider breadth of experience, but then a deep specialism as well. And things have changed now so that we are becoming more adaptable. And I think I am an M-shaped person now, so I have more than one speciality and breadth across more than one particular speciality. And the idea is that in the future, people's careers or job roles, if you like, are going to change tenfold at least. So what we're going to have to be is M's, so lots of M's together, or pi, which is the combination of M and P. And the ultimate, if you like, is to be the E shape, which is essentially having multiple areas of breadth and skill in terms of deep specialisms. But the focus here is people that can combine experience, expertise, innovation, and execution. So the emphasis here is not just on being able to dream ideas, but also make them happen. And so in the new world, it's going to be the M's or the pies and the E-shaped people that future organisations are going to need. So just for fun, just for a few seconds, a few minutes, just let me know what shape you are.
Have been working at home since the year 2000, so my shape is definitely pear-shaped. Not as athletic as I'd like. But do you want to, as we know the question is what shape are you, do you want to go back to just give people the choice of the shapes, back a slide,
sure.
So people know what shapes they could be? I really have no idea what shape I am at all. I'm not sure I have any deep. I think I'm still a T shape. I don't know what. What's the pie shape? Can you just remind us what the pie shape is?
This is where you essentially have deep specialisms in a number of areas and you have breadth. So not just one, but, you know, so it's almost like the M continues and continues and continues and you become an
I think I might be a pie. I don't know. That might just be my love of pies influencing my thinking. Oh, Bert Jenkins has put it in a chai. I think that is a Greek letter from the alphabet. So anyway, something where it's an X anyway, which is another alternative I've seen on this. So look, most people are saying they're M shapes, a couple of T's in there.
Brilliant.
What's your response to that?
Well, that's brilliant because I think there has been a move away from I because everyone's recognised that they need to have broader skills. So that's really good if people are actually M already. What we really need to start doing is working for ourselves and our organisations to become more pi and E. So how do we actually go about doing that? Um, and what's another thing to think about when we're thinking about these shapes is to think about the mix of hard and soft skills. So I'm not going to go into too much detail about the difference between hard and soft skills or how you go about looking at those because it's going to be so dependent on so many different factors around your industry and how it's progressing towards the future. But it's just another thing to think about when you're thinking overall about skills. So putting it all together, how can you actually make your organization, how can you sort of fit a framework around making your whole organization more career adaptable? And this is something that has been taken from Mark Favicus's research, which was very, very extensive. And the reason that I really reference you to this is because this is very recent. It's really looking at how do individuals adapt from a psychosocial context. How do they cope with development, with occupational transitions, and work trauma? So exactly the situation that we're within now. And what this framework does is that it really is a framework for success because what it's actually doing is looking at the person holistically. So it's emphasizing flexibility and mobility, but it's also allowing for work to be meaningful and allowing individuals the ability to control their work environment as well as balance other responsibilities, including work, family, and the like. Um, and it helps because obviously we're in this situation and we know that people are only going to work and be adaptable and resilient if they're enjoying what they're doing and they have the capacity and the capability to do it. So I'm going to focus on the demonstration of career adaptability, but I will also show you how you can combine the first two bullet points in a slightly different way. So the first thing I'm going to talk to you about is how you can show career adaptability. And again, this is taken from Savicas, and really it's around these four things. First of all, concern. How interested are you in the future? Do you look ahead and plan for what might come next? Control. Do you take responsibility? We're all trying at the moment to build a learning culture. What control are people taking for their own development? What influence and shape are they actually driving? And curiosity, can you as an individual imagine and explore different scenarios that can open up new possibilities for yourself? And lastly, confidence. Do you have, do you believe in yourself and your ability to pursue these goals? So he only had four to kind of demonstrate career capability. But I think capability it is probably needed because that's about do you actually have the access to the resources to be able to even do, if you like, 1 to 4. And depending on, what stage of life you're at, depending on what your personal circumstances are, that could actually vary quite a lot and prohibit some of the things that are in the first 4 bullet points. So what I wanted to do was to get you to start this conversation within your organization. For a lot of people, this is scary stuff. Looking at the future is actually quite scary. They don't want to do it. And others are not going to be good at doing it. But there is a free resource on cabba.org. The link is down the bottom here, which actually goes through each of these 4 elements that we've just talked about and asks the person to reflect on each of those 4 with a simple assessment tool. It only takes 10 minutes. It would be simple for you to potentially convert for your own purposes, because you might have slightly different considerations within your organization. But as a starting point, it really is a fabulous free tool that you can go and have a look at and start the conversation really within the organization. And if you can put something like this on an internal tool, I would say this is proprietary to Cabba, but I'm sure that if you ask them, they will let you use it for educational purposes. But it is proprietary to them. But anyone can go to the website and actually do the actual assessment. But if you are able to convert this in some way and put it onto your LMS or any tracking system that you have, then as an organization, it really lets you know what areas the workforce are strong at and where you need to focus your efforts on building that career adaptability. And I think that that is something that is relatively easy to put together. So once you've actually started that reflection, even with people who might not want to have the conversation, then what you really need to start getting them to do is to assess where their current skills are. And again, here is another tool. We developed this with the Trade Union Congress, or the Union Learn arm of the Trade Union Congress. And this is really about looking not just at your job skills, but your transferable skills and valuing them. And you can see here that it's actually become very popular now, and it's been translated into I think about 14 languages now. As on the left, you'll see some of the languages that it's been translated into, and it's gone out all across Europe through the affiliations that the TUC have in Europe. So thousands of people are actually using this tool. And what this does is essentially help you in terms of looking at that holistic side of your transferable skills, but also honing in on what we talked about at the beginning, which was the concept of what is your vocational or professional personality, and the life themes. And this is across that whole spectrum of data, people, ideas, and things. And as you complete the tool, you might actually start forming a pattern of sort of rating yourself as just adequate. So there is some AI that's been built into it to kind of address that and make sure that you can reassess whether you really are either overconfident or underconfident in the way that you're assessing yourself. It's got some other neat little features like being able to pin skills that you have, being able to write notes in there, everything going eventually to a pin board, because those are the skills that you might want to focus on. The other really neat thing in here is that it actually helps you build an action plan. So what we're doing here and what we're wanting is to turn thought into action. So while you're here, it's encouraging you to build that skills action plan. And eventually what it will do is after this, it actually gets you to reflect and it allows you to think about as a result of the actions that you've taken. So in addition to building the skills plan, it encourages you to go in and actually pick them off as you do them, that little bit of dopamine that allows you to kind of be happy with yourself. But once you've built the skills action plan and completed it, then you get some reflection moments to see how far you've come. And it invites you to go back in again and maybe look at some of the other skills that you pinned or other areas that you might want to develop. So again, this is a free tool. Anyone can go to the Union Learn website and have access to it. You don't need to be a part of a union. You can get access to it straight away. And those are, easy and simple things. They're free. I think would be really valuable for you to consider putting in, especially at this time for your organisations, or giving access to these as part of your current working from home and self-development exercises. And so once people have actually identified the skills that they have and where they might want to concentrate on, you then potentially need to give them the ability to essentially practice those skills. And what I would suggest is, using technology to enable that, because as we know, skills take time to build, and if they're not practiced, then you don't, however much training you've actually had, if you don't actually practice, then you won't make them habitual, and therefore you won't actually gain the skill. But there is a way of quickening or accelerating skills acquisition through a concept called deliberate practice. So it's practice by essentially breaking down each skill into much smaller, manageable facets for you to master individually and then build on that. And that's been shown through research to essentially achieve mastery a lot quicker than even if you practiced every single day, but didn't use the concepts of deliberate practice. So this is the way that we've actually tackled this particular problem, and that is through a chatbot that has enhanced AI features and is able to take you through enhancing your skills using the concepts of deliberate practice. But we weren't quite happy with just doing that. So some of you have, some of you will understand that a lot of Savicas's theories are really built around career coaching, and coaching normally is done by a person. And what we wanted to do was enable the masses, so people lower down the chain, as well as the executive or the management teams or the senior teams within organisations, to be able to get that kind of career coaching. So we are currently working with the Department for Education to put together a product that combines all of the things that we've talked about, but in a much more mass way. Unfortunately, I was hoping that we would be able to show you some of this um, uh, so that you could see it for yourself, but we're actually under embargo at the moment. So I'd like to just invite you in the chat to think about how could we take what we've got with career coaching and with allowing individuals to do this kind of assessment, this kind of self-analysis around career adaptability. How would you put everything together and and make it available to the masses? And when I say the masses, we're doing this with the National Retraining Scheme, it is potentially going to go out to hundreds of thousands of people.
Is there any chance? Could you rephrase that question slightly? It was quite a long question. I'm not
Sure.
quite sure people would necessarily have grabbed it all.
Sure. So if you had all of the tools in the world and you could do career coaching, which is usually face to face at spaced intervals, if you could do that en masse with the kind of assessment tools that we've talked about, what would that maybe look like in your own minds?
I think this is quite a difficult question to answer.
Yeah.
I would suggest that we go on with your explanation of what you're doing and invite people's reaction to it, because I know we've got some screenshots coming up or some images to suggest what might be possible. Certainly my interjection at this point would be I've been following the idea of online coaching and technology to support it for about 2 years now. It's undoubtedly, and in a variety of ways, it's undoubtedly an area there's going to be explosive growth in. And Noorie, I'd like to pick up with you a conversation about this offline later on. Because I think it's something which is undoubtedly the time has come, and I think there are some organisations, I have no shares in Saffron by the way, but there are some organisations like Saffron that have spent a bit of time developing skills in this area, like the work you've done with chatbots, for example, Noorie,
Yeah.
that will put them in a good position to really benefit from a big uptick that's coming place now in coaching and mentoring. And I do believe actually that with the current virus issue, more stuff being done online, less stuff being done face-to-face with managers and people, it's more timely, more pertinent. So this whole thing is an idea whose time has come, but can you show us some pictures to stimulate discussion and thinking from our audience?
So what could it look like? You could actually, first of all, pick your career coach. It won't be a live person. It will look like a live person, but because this is going out for the masses, it will actually be a AI-enabled chatbot. But you will be able to choose them. You will be able to talk to them like a normal person.
But when you say talk, just to be quite clear, when you say talk, do you mean verbally, or do you mean typing?
Both. So you can choose to FaceTime, you can use voice, or you can actually use your keyboard. So all three. It will recognize who you are. It will recognize facial expression potentially, and be able to respond in a lifelike way. So again, using AI. It will hopefully take you through the tools and the assessments, encouraging you as a career coach would in terms of completing your program or your plan that you've actually devised for yourself, the results of which will lead to signposting to potentially additional qualifications that you can take that are specific to the skills that you have and the jobs that you want to be able to train for. And finally, it will also, hopefully with the National Retraining Project, also direct you to the job families that are within the National Retraining Scheme and have been defined, and then eventually lead to actual job roles as well, so that there is a clear sight from you thinking about your skills to understanding what you need to achieve your aims and aspirations, to providing you with the resources to be able to achieve those aims and ambitions, and then also directing you to extrinsic motivations such as another job or another position that is actually available and that you can apply for. So that's the overall ambition. What do people think about that?
I want to rephrase that, not rephrase it, re-put it to the audience. We have an ambition here to give people a. Is this a paid-for service or is it a free service?
It will be a free service.
A free service. Is it just in the UK or is it international?
No, it's just in the UK for the moment.
Okay. Free service in the UK could be, I mean, you could use it from overseas, but it wouldn't necessarily make any sense. But so you've got a free service that enables you to assess your skills, go on and plan where you're going to. Well, I think everyone's reaction is, it sounds pretty good. Alistair's reaction is, when will it be available for general use? Which I think is a decent question to ask.
Well, we're hoping that it will be available by October, November 2020. So it's
October, November this year.
October, November this year. Obviously, with the way that things are, things might accelerate, but certainly that's the overall deadline. We're going to have pilots before that, and if anyone is interested in signing up for pilots and for testing and helping us co-develop the overall solution, then please get in touch. And you know, we'd be glad of your help and your input.
Just to be quite clear, because we might have a number of people on the call who would like to get involved, how do they get in touch with you to say, Noorie, put me down for working on the pilot?
Yeah, so there is a website landing page. So if you go into our website, we can post it to you, Don. So it'll be part of the slides overall when they are put up on the LSG. But you can also go to our website and download not only the slides but also all of these links, so that you can get in touch with us if you want to help in any way.
Is it something I could find on the website at the moment if I dug around?
Bert will be able to answer that. Bert, sorry, but I'm pretty sure.
Bert, throwing you a curveball there. If you could put something in, that'd be great. Because we've got a lot of people on the call. This is the right audience. We've got people here who will want to put people on and test it and be very much at the leading edge of the innovation adoption curve. So, and yeah. Thank you, Bert. Puts it in there. There you go. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning of these questions. Mary's saying, will there be a paid subscription? No, it's not a paid subscription. This is a free tool, just to be quite clear.
This is a free tool. Yes, it's a free tool. Okay. It will be on the Union Learn website. So I don't know if you guys are aware of the National Retraining Scheme, but it's a joint initiative by the Department for Education, the CBI, and the Trade Union Congress. It was announced back in 2018. There have been pilots up in, I think, Manchester, Liverpool, and the like, six particular areas, most of them up north. And they're expecting sort of mass rollout across 2020 for these things. So I would encourage you, not just for this program, but there are several other programs that are going on that you can link into in terms of resources. But this one is something very specific that we're working on alongside the Department for Education and the TUC.
Thank you very much, Noorie. I think it's great It's a great initiative. It's also a great opportunity, and it's a great possibility to participate in something which could be life-changing for a lot of people. It's a bit like buses. Sounds a bit strange, but for a long time, when I was a kid, and then in the 80s, living in London, I was thinking to myself, buses are fantastic, but what stops people getting a bus is not knowing when the next bus is going to come, because now that isn't a problem. We have a variety of apps and indeed signs in bus shelters that enable you to know when the next bus is coming. It's the same with jobs and skills. Very often there are things available very close to us. There are things we could do which would get us skilled up and enable us to find new ways of using our own talents, if only we knew what they were. And for me, this is like the sort of national infrastructure that any country needs to just help things, in this case, people and talent, move more smoothly, like buses.
Yeah.
Ian Hurd asks, how do you plan to track and assess soft skills? That's a pretty big question. You did mention, I think, a range of skills, without saying you wanted to get tied up in defining hard and soft skills. But can you give some answer to Ian on that one? Will it be possible to track and assess soft skills like, I don't know, communication, listening, and so on?
Yeah, I think with the chatbot that we have, it does actually have an analytics dashboard at the back of it. So there is a reporting at the back of it. And the way that you can assess soft skills is in terms of the range of responses, but using deliberate practice, it actually shows whether the individual is actually building on their skills and scaffolding on their skills, or whether they're actually remaining at the same kind of level. So using deliberate practice, using the chatbot, using the analytics in terms of the responses and the exercises that are actually being carried out, the frequency, a combination of that with data insights, you can actually measure, at least to a certain degree, and the best you can in terms of how those skills are being developed. Does that answer your question, Ian?
I think it's a pretty comprehensive answer. I think hopefully it does, but the issue is always that there are, for me anyway, I don't want to put words into Ian's mouth. For me, the issue is always the definition of soft skills, in terms not of saying, oh, that particular thing is a soft skill, but of saying, this is what it looks like when you do it well, and this is what it looks like when you are not doing it well. And that's always an issue. Ian's asking about deliberate practice. Yeah, focusing on gaps, and I think about a more 360-degree feedback assessment. Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, 360 has been around for, obviously a long time, and what the chatbot is supposed to do is almost like a personal app for you to try and practice those skills in the first place, because if you're not practicing them in the first place, you can't actually get good at them, at all. So the 360 is whether that practice and your skills are actually being used in practice, and whether they're actually effective or not. So it's almost like another level that needs to be done. And we haven't gone into that because most organisations that we work with already have some form of 360 as part of their normal performance management cycle. The chatbot idea is really about sort of practicing these skills and enabling individuals at mass to acquire, if you like, these soft skills that sometimes training is only provided to the top tier. So this was if you like, a more efficient and cost-effective way, as well as perhaps more reliable than face-to-face training in terms of delivering on that particular objective.
I'm seeing a lot of people at the moment, by the way, talking about the difficulties of moving online, and the ad hoc webinar I did last week on moving your training online has turned out to be the most downloaded webinar we've ever had for the Learning and Skills Group. I think a lot of people are going into the business of moving stuff online in quite a dangerous way, trying to just bottle up a classroom course and do it online. And that's clearly an issue, Noorie. You've been in this field for a while. You know some of the issues people are facing with this. Do you have any advice or thoughts to share with people?
Well, I have to say, the last 3 weeks there's been utter panic, and we have been inundated with inquiries around, turning everything into e-learning or
Yeah, I've got a
suddenly,
PowerPoint deck. Can you turn it to e-learning for me, please?
yeah, or suddenly, acquiring an LMS or things like that. And really, I think, uh, there has been a lot of panic, and a lot of the conversations that we've had is, but you don't really need this right now, do you?
Yeah.
And a little bit of sense checking, really, in terms of, what is it? It isn't, there are different skills that are attached to being a trainer that is face to face to a trainer that is digital. You can't just turn classroom material into a webinar. It just does not work. So yes, everyone needs to work with some acceleration, but I think also with less panic and more purposeful thought in terms of what is actually critical and what is needed. I think there are certain things that people ought to be thinking about. Everyone sort of might be thinking that working from home is great, for example, but people are starting to realize that that isolation can actually have mental health issues.
Yep.
Um, it is actually lonely working from home. It's frustrating sometimes, all of those kinds of things. So, how do you actually encourage a virtual uh, organization? How do you actually do virtual leadership? How do you actually keep projects running on time now that you can't have impromptu meetings, for example, always? Um, Now that people are homeschooling and having to, potentially do a lot more during their work hours, how do you actually manage that as an organization? There are sort of, a lot of fundamental things that probably need to be addressed before, um, you know, some of the other things that people are coming to us with, such as other compliance training or things like that.
I think it's a fair point. I think we also have to accept that that there are some people who just, I mean, I've had so many conversations the past 10 days with people who are saying, look, I've got this course booked. I cannot not do it, but I now need to do it online. What do I do? And I
Yeah.
think there's a short term in which actually just doing something quick and dirty, doing as good a job as you
Mm.
can,
Mm.
accepting it will be not perfect, is the right
Yeah.
thing to do.
Yeah,
Do
absolutely.
not, to echo Nourie's words, I think do not rush out and try to buy an LMS. Do not rush out and try to just, well, actually, you can by all means do something for the short term, but do not confound that with the idea that this is a long-term solution. I think there's a short-term period of a few weeks where we just have to get stuff done.
Yeah.
Then there is a period of probably a couple of months where we are still going to be largely working online. And in that period, we need to build systems really thoughtfully and processes to work better with a new normal of an online digital by default world. When we've done that, then I think we can go into what you're talking about, Noorie, which is this longer world where actually structural things have changed and
Mm.
the way we work is very different. It will go back to being something like it was, but it won't go back to exactly like it was. And I
No.
don't think we're going to be having people having those casual chats in the same way they used to. One thing
Yeah.
this is going to be telling everybody is that time is a crucial resource that is not free. And I think that's one thing that's going to be coming away from that. And that will mean that we will still get together. But when we get together, it will be regarded as being a high cost opportunity, whether that's for meetings or learning or anything, which
Mm.
therefore has to be associated with a really high value product. So if you're going to get people together, be damn sure you're providing them with the value they need to be in that room together. It can't
Yeah.
just be the sitting down listening to somebody. Is that fair enough,
Yeah.
Noorie? So I've
I,
gone off on one. This is your webinar, not mine, but I've been, this is what we've been living, isn't it, for the past few weeks?
yeah. No, I think that's absolutely on point. It's absolutely on point. Time is money, time is precious. We all know that. So using it wisely, increasing productivity is absolutely crucial in the coming months, and thinking through uh, and planning for all of these things is going to be critical now. And I think planning is the key. Take breath,
Yep.
plan and think through what you need to do over the next few months, and play through the scenarios that might come about over the next few months. And I think that will stand you in good stead.
And
Um,
perhaps some of that scenario planning could be done with vendors like Saffron, have a conversation with them. But what do you think is going to be happening? You might find that you get some new thoughts coming through. In fact, I always find that scenario planning or just sort of speculating is very well done on LinkedIn. I might stick a LinkedIn up about this saying, how do you think the world's going to look in September? We might get a bunch of really interesting replies. Nicola says, I think it's important to identify what you're trying to achieve with a newly converted online offer. I completely agree. Is it aligned to new ways of working? Does it encourage connectivity and so on? Not just a quick fix and reactive solution. I mean, Nicola, I do think there is space for very quick fixes. Oh my Lord, these people are coming tomorrow and I can't do anything else but just try and do the best I can. But I think that we have to get out of that very quickly. And the crucial thing is, whatever we do in the short term that's quick and dirty, we must not regard that as being the best result, or indeed anything close to being a good result. It's just something we did to plug the holes in the boat. Then you have to start pumping and have a new way of doing learning in the workforce, which is going to be different, definitely. Ian Hurd is saying, TeacherBot, brackets Twitter chatbot, was a great example of how chatbots can be used to foster critical thinking as opposed to trying to replicate face-to-face traditional learning modalities. It's a really good example. And do you want at this point to say anything about the chatbot that you've had very successfully being used via Saffron, Noorie?
Yeah, so SkillsBot, as I say, it's not a normal sort of question and answer bot. So it's actually, a little bit more sophisticated than just questions and answers. What it does is, as I said, it uses deliberate practice, but it actually takes you through, for example, if it was, a performance conversation that you were going to have, it will take you through what are your concerns about that conversation. How are you going to address it? Do you need to do an exercise? And essentially, it prepares you for what's going to happen. So if you actually reveal that that conversation is going to happen in 7 days' time, it will then come back to you in 3 days' time and say, have you prepared for it yet? After you've had the conversation, it will come back and say to you, how did it go? What went well? What didn't go so well? And it will remember those things for the next time you're in that situation, and it will remind you about what went well, what you're going to do differently the next time round. So please, do have a look at it. But those are the kinds of things that I think can help with that critical analysis that Ian was talking about, and it can actually be much better than face to face, simply because it's available all the time, and it provides that personalized coaching that in real life just doesn't happen with a mentor, and is going to happen even less now, potentially, that we're all so far apart from each other and living these virtual lives.
You will know that, everybody, you'll know that I do the global sentiment survey, and I check what people are thinking is hot at one point of the year. The thing that got added this year was was coaching and mentoring. So I just think that may undergo an uptick this year as a result of some of the interest we're seeing for precisely the reasons you're talking about, Noorie. Just putting a link in there so you can get through to the Global Sentiment Survey. I've also put a link in there for SkillsBot as well, Noorie. I have no financial interest in Saffron, but I do recognise quality stuff when I see it, and they've done some really interesting stuff. So I'd jump off at that point, which is a blog entry from last year, I think, and then start to explore what you can do with SkillsBot. I'm going to have to write something about this at some point, because it's definitely an exploding place. Not SkillsBot, that's one example, not just SkillsBot, but it's an exploding field of real interest. Now look, it is 12:57. It's time for me to wrap up. I'm going to put in that link again to at the end there, how you can get in touch, or the form to fill in, so you can get yourself onto the the new pilot that Noorie was talking about. Noorie, do you just want to wrap up and everything else? Talk through our final slide here.
Yeah, I just would say career adaptability is going to be vital for any organization. You guys are very clued up on it already, and you're already starting to do things, so that's great. To get buy-in, you need to kind of ensure that your stakeholders understand that it really does create security for the organizations and as well as the individuals in your care. Start that conversation internally. There will be people that are scared of the conversation, but use those tools and resources that are already available for free. And think about, as we've said, about how you accelerate building skills using technology like SkillsBot. But start now, because the planning has to start now, and review it constantly, because things obviously change considerably, and make sure that the plans that you're putting in place are revised and reviewed on a constant basis. Leverage us in terms of any conversations. You won't get a selling exercise, but you will get some experience where we have the experience and how we've seen it work well. And obviously the community is very generous, so leverage that as well. And if you need to get in touch with us, this is where we are.
Fantastic. We've actually had lots. Thank you very much. We've had lots of Saffron interactive links in the chat, but there we are. And also, someone did ask me for the link to my webinar, so I put it in from last week, and also my free book of Webinar Master. Mary says, thank you for an engaging conversation, great resources. Mary, thank you for that, and Luciane as well. Loads to take away. The chat, the recording, the slides will all be available from Monday at learningandskillsgroup.com. Just going to drop that URL back into the chat for you. And I'm going to wrap up by taking us through our outro. Please do, if you've discovered something useful here that you'd like the rest of the world to know about, put it onto Twitter. Use the hashtag LSGWebinar. It enables people to know where the ideas have come from. As I say, things are all available from Monday, possibly even beforehand. With my PA, Mandy, has moved to Australia, which means that sometimes things happen very quickly because it's overnight for us and it's her day. Learningandskillsgroup.com for everything. And look, we've got a lot of webinars coming up, April 23rd, May 7th, May 21st, June 11th. If you go to learningandskillsgroup.com/events, you'll see the whole list of events that we have coming up. Definitely worth checking that out. And when we are all working online, figuring out how we're going to make the best use of our time to develop ourselves for the future. It's been great having you in the room, everybody. Thank you so much for your time. Noorie, Sazen of Saffron Interactive, thank you so much for coming along today, sharing with us your thoughts about everything that's happening, but in particular this idea of how we can be adaptable and prepare ourselves for the future. Thank you so much, Noorie.